Okay, as it's 7:02 and we definitely have a quorum, let us start the meeting of the Bolton Master Plan Steering Committee. And the agenda came out, and I'd like to maintain the agenda, but rearrange it ever so slightly. First of all, introductions. And the introduction obviously is with Heather Gould from the BSC Group, who is now our consultant for master planning for the town of Bolton. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
Brian and Valerie and I spoke with Heather earlier and got a sense of how things will fit together and what her role will be and what our role will be. But Heather, if you could provide us a little bit of background on you, that would be great.
Sure. It's a pleasure to see all your faces tonight. As Bob said, my name is Heather Gould. I am the Director of Planning at the BSC Group, and I spent a number of years with the City of Worcester in their Economic Development Department. Involved in large and small scale development projects, master planning efforts, and the like. I've been with BSC Group now for about 4 years, a little over 4 years, and continue to work on master planning efforts all over the state, and am really looking forward to working with you all.
Great, and welcome. I think it's appropriate at this point, since we have had discussions about how we're going to move forward and the relationship among the town planner, new town planner, Mr. Miller, who will join us next month, but is on board September 6th officially, and he took a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, which I thought was inappropriate, since obviously we're of great interest in his involvement in our effort. Nonetheless, I can understand that he would want to meet with them. But we discussed briefly how the whole thing would fit together and what the various roles of the steering committee and the people who've been working on various tasks would be with respect to Heather. And I think it's appropriate at this point to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities without getting into details, which we will work out very specifically. And we have had a certain amount of that conversation in supporting Heather. Heather will very much be ultimately the single voice that pulls together the overall master plan. And we will be working with her, providing support, much as we have up until now. The format of the master plan will probably not change a great deal. But Heather, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the approach that we discussed and you laid out in our earlier meeting, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So the thought that I had, and the way that we usually go about this, is we look at your master plan committee as an advisory board, and helping to steer this project and continue to keep the momentum and spread the word, offer your expertise and your interests and your time, and really help to shape the way the plan is going to come out looking at the end of the day, helping with priorities, looking at the information that's already been compiled. There's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done already, and looking at where the gaps may be and trying to figure out where that can be filled, whether it's background information or institutional knowledge that someone has, or a website that they said, hey, I was reading about this and maybe it makes sense to look at that, or the like. With that being said, I know that there have been subcommittees for the various different elements of the master plan, and I would be looking to kind of lay out all of the progress that's been made by each committee, come up with an outline of the entire plan itself and what will go into each different section of the plan, and work with each group one-on-one with kind of a master tracker, more like a task manager in a way, that will allow us to make sure that the progress is continuing to move forward, and the plan is really being developed in a thoughtful way. So as Bob said, ultimately the writing will be done on my end, with my team, and we will be putting together a complete document for review. I think it would work best just to gather everything together, and then hand off the document for review versus trying to do it section by section. I think it gets a little tedious, and if timelines get pushed because people don't have a chance to read, I think looking at one whole document and being able to see how the different chapters relate to each other and all of that at the end of the day will be the most productive and efficient way to actually get this master plan draft completed. I don't know if anybody has any questions about any of that, but that was my approach that we had discussed.
Well, I think we did have discussion about two alternative approaches to a master plan, one of which is developing the individual elements of the master plan on an individual basis. And we, I think, jointly concluded that that's not the best way of doing business, primarily because of all of the influences of the various components of the master plan to each other, and to try to compartmentalize it and anticipate those cross currents and try to establish some higher level priorities. It would be very, very difficult on an individual stepwise compartmentalized approach. So that was, we reached the conclusion, I think, that Heather had proposed of, let's get an outline, let's make sure that we understand what the whole thing is going to look like, and then with her lead, start moving forward. And then as knowledge appears, either through new stuff that's come up, institutional knowledge that may have not been presented as well or as in detail as necessary, or the expertise of individuals in the task groups can be brought to bear. But I think having, as Brian had proposed earlier, of having an overall picture of what the whole thing would look like without the detail, and being able to bring to bear the information necessary to build it and to address the higher priorities. And we got into a discussion about things like the importance of climate change, the importance of transportation, the importance of housing, the importance of economic development, all of which are highly interconnected and need to be addressed pretty much across the board within the whole master plan. Heather, you had presented, and it warmed the cockles of my project manager heart, an approach that you had proposed. And would you be able to share that with us? I know you just had an example. It's by no means fleshed out. If that's available. Valerie, could you give her?
Can you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of, I was trying to pull from the different colors of the logo per se that was presented in the fall at the Public Engagement Community Forum, and looking at the different kind of sections or chapters and overall plan project management. Recapping work that's been done to date, and some of these columns may change a little bit as we're talking about different elements. But looking overall at the committee as a whole, it'll probably get broken out further by the subcommittees and the work that they're doing as well. Looking at the public engagement plan and really coming up with a way to meet people where they are and on their own terms. Continuing to keep them involved and educated and aware of the progress that's being made, and I don't want to say the decisions being made, but how the plan is being really developed and completed. And then the various different components that will be part of the draft plan itself, which is, demographic information, the climate change component, land use, housing, economic development, cultural and historic resources, schools, municipal facilities and services, the government and finance, open space recreation, transportation, water and sewer, and then this overall implementation plan. And as it all gets filled in, I think it will be very helpful to, at least for me, to visit on a very regular basis, you know, a couple times a week. And in working with the committee and looking at that, to really hold accountability and to hold to the timelines and to talk through any challenges or any questions or any notes that come up and keep us all on task.
Good. Stasha, you had a question?
I do. Thank you. Oops. Are you guys there?
Yep.
Can you see me? Okay, great. My screen just went crazy. Welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for being here. My question was just, and you touched on it, but I would love to hear just a tiny bit more if we have time for it. Bob will tell me if we don't. But the public input and the public outreach and kind of that whole public engagement plan, what are kind of your visions for how that will shape out?
So I would like to come up with an overall framework that would address social media. It would address special events that happen. We have an online platform that we'll be implementing using Conveo to help with getting, you know, input through other online mechanisms. Story maps, which we've created before, that help to really expand on the education of certain elements and the process, and you know they allow you to scroll through rather than having to click page by page, so they're really kind of a neat tool. Having a project website, and then you know the in-person efforts that are beyond just meeting people at events. So it's kind of an overall how often, how much, what are we asking, you know, all that will have to be really fleshed out, and how can it build upon the past efforts that have been done, since there has been a lot of work done.
Super quick
Yeah, it sounds a
follow-up.
lot. I'm sorry, go ahead, Stasha.
Super quick. So on all of the website help and the online platform, the Conveo platform, are any of those online resources also a method for public feedback? Or
Yes.
okay, great.
Conveo will allow for that. Yeah, it'll
Perfect.
be a little bit interactive in the sense that if people have questions or whatever, we can respond back. But there is that interactive component to it for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, Bob. Thank you.
No, and it's great to have, pardon the expression, it's somewhat compartmentalized in one media application rather than going into a very broad Facebook approach to doing business. But I think the conversation that we had earlier with Heather very much reflected what the public outreach and communication task group had put together, and a number of new ideas, new applications, obviously, you know, carefully thought out media applications to do it. But I think the highlight of it all is engage, get feedback, address the feedback, and reestablish the momentum that we had earlier. But it's, you know, it's clearly terrifically important both ways to maintain communication with a wide range of stakeholders, both within the town government and within the overall town as a whole, residents of the town. At the same time, get back input from all of them and be able to address that input and further explore that input. But it's, you know, it Heather underlined the importance, and I think we understand it, but we really haven't maintained it as well, maintained the momentum as well as we should have. And people are looking for that. And as we do that, there will be more visibility to the master plan, therefore more input to the master plan, and certainly good questions that we will have to address in the master plan. But let me suggest at this point, we do have Kia, who you will you see and will meet, put together a very nice profile of the members of the steering committee, but I thought it would be nice to very briefly go around the members of the steering committee and just give a précis of what your background is and what your interest in the master plan and steering committee has been, and you see it being going forward. Something that I'd like to address a little bit further later. But Sharon, since you're up on my upper left, why don't you start with you?
I think being in the upper left is exactly where I belong. So
I'm sorry, I was talking about.
I'm so comfortable here. I can't even see myself, but I know I'm in the upper left. I have been somewhat absent. I've been very absent actually for the last several months, learning how to run a life that was done by two people, but doing it with one person. But my background, as far as the master plan goes, has to do with my commitment to climate resiliency and the climate crisis that we're in, so that I headed a Solarize Bolton program several years ago, and right now am working with Tony Jagodnik, who was the solar coach for that project, and then took a Heat Smart program afterwards. And we are trying to start a town committee called, oh, I've just lost the name of it. Well, something having to do with energy.
It'll come to you, Sharon.
Vision, yes, it'll come. But that's my big commitment to this group is helping the town to respond to the climate crisis.
Great. Hey, Mark.
Mark Straight. Because I'm sort of the planning board liaison, although Bob is stepping into that some too. I've been on a variety of boards in town, and I was on the water and sewer task force to help with that effort. And I mean, you know, involved in a lot of town government, so I've got a vested interest in the future of the town. So
Great. Ken?
I've been involved in planning of one sort or another with the town since I was on the Conservation Commission with Bob back in the late 70s and into 1980. I became a selectman in 82, but that didn't stop me from being interested in long-range planning. And so I was involved in several things on that, and I was on the master planning committee, or at least the selectman's liaison to it, in the last time around in 2005 and 6. And so it seemed reasonable to be involved in this. I also worked on the open space plan update that was done in 2017, having overseen some of those and written some of the early ones, again with Bob. And I'm the town's rep to the MART, so I'm working with Mary on the transportation stuff, and involved in a few other things in town still as well.
And Ken's professional background is transportation.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I was at the Volpe Center in Cambridge for over 30 years, and then have been a consultant in transportation since then, the last 15 or more.
Thanks, Ken. Stasha?
Stasha Downey. I currently sit on the housing subcommittee, but I am a lifelong resident of Bolton. I was born here and went to school here, and I think I left for maybe 8 years. I got a master's in education, and now I'm back raising my family. I spent a few years on the finance committee in town. I'm now a teacher in the district, and I have dabbled in the world of affordable housing. So that the housing, there seemed to be a need in this group for some more folks on that subcommittee. So that's how I kind of came in a little bit late, I think, to the whole thing, but I'm here now. So I would say my vested interest is in every single one of these categories.
Yes, and dabbling with respect to affordable housing, I think is a bit of an understatement.
Well, I don't know. There's so many, I don't have any, formal training in it. I just had a passion for making sure it's done well in the town.
Good. Annie,
I'm Penny Gherkin. I've been involved in town committees for the last probably 40 years. Ken and I are sort of leftovers. I've been on the school committee, the selectmen, the finance committee, and I'm presently chairman of the Council on Aging. And my basic interest in the whole, well, other than the whole master plan, but is the buildings and the department interfacing.
Brian,
Heather, we met a couple times. I've been in town since 2016, so relative newcomer compared to everybody else on this committee. I have a young child, and the plan is that he's going to grow up here, so I have a vested interest in kind of seeing how the town evolves over the course of the next several years. I've been involved in a few different things, and I love Bolton. I think it's an awesome place, so it's worth preserving what makes it great and figuring out how to deal with what the future's bringing fast and furiously.
good. Harry,
Sorry,
There you go.
my computer's acting up. Like Brian, I'm considering a newbie, but I've been here for 21 years. And I've been involved in different organizations, first with the Bolton Historical Society, which the historic preservation of this town, the landscapes and the structures, is very dear to me. Sometimes I can be a little overbearing about it. I'm also with the Friends of Bolton Seniors Group, where we provide support and programs to Bolton seniors. So that's one population in the Bolton community that I am very involved with. And I'm also on the Public Waste Safety Committee, which is why I'm on the Transportation Task Group. That's about it.
Great. Thank you very much. Kia,
Hi, I'm Kia. I am probably the most generalist person here, master of nothing, but dabble in everything. I have been in Bolton 28 years. I live in the historic town center, which of course I love. I have been involved in the Historical Society, the library renovation was a 10-year project of mine and my husband's. I also was originally on the Public Ways Committee with Mary. And my background is really in educational publishing. I'm a graphic designer. So I care about history. I care about good visuals, good culture, good, just good long-range planning and vision. I can't say, I would willingly have been on any of these committees. In the end, I'm on land use, which I care about because I hike all over the town, and climate change, because climate change is so critical to our future. So that's it for me.
Ed,
Hi, Ed Sterling. I'm currently the chairman of Parks and Recreation Commission in town. And then I'm on the Open Space and Recreation Subcommittee here with Master Planning. 35-year resident, former Concom, former selectman, long-range planning effort number probably 5 or something back in 2000. Bolton Video. So a lot of different tasks at Town Hall over the last 25 years. Fairly specific interest at the moment in recreation. I've been with the Boy Scouts for about 25 years, so I'm very outdoor oriented that way. I've learned a lot from the Boy Scouting system. As I say, chairman, right now, we're trying to improve what we can for recreation in town, and we're very grateful to have a part-time coordinator now at Town Hall to help that effort. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Last but not least, actually probably least, me and Heather, I didn't introduce myself when we first met. I've been in town for 46 years. Came here to purchase a house from the Bolton Conservation Trust, which we still live in, and was separated off from conservation land. My background is engineering and project management. I might add that my family and I have lived overseas in a number of locations as well as around the US. But interestingly enough, we return to Bolton every time. So that's my interest. I've been on a number of town boards and have provided ad hoc engineering support in a number of areas. So that's it.
Indeed.
So
now you have.
But you might add that Bob is very much involved with Sturbridge Village. With Old Sturbridge Village. He's on the board of trustees there and helped to design their cabinet shop and things of that sort.
And we'll necessarily have to back off on that to work more on the master plan. Besides, the commute is much shorter for the master plan. Okay, I think we've covered who we are, what the overall structure of the master plan would be. And at this point, one thing I would like to bring up, and everybody has identified what their interests are and at a very high level who they are and what their backgrounds are. But I wanted to say that we can very much reset, if necessary, and if it's desired by individuals, how we move forward in terms of your participation. And I absolutely understand that what was going to be, if you recall the original write-ups, a group of task groups that would have short duration efforts, clearly delineated, and would not be expected to attend endless meetings for a long period of time. And then along came COVID, and what was supposed to have been a 2-year effort is now, let's see, 2 years and 9 months, and we're resetting it to move in for another year. But please think about that. If there are other areas that you would be interested in, if you want to, dare I say, retire from the steering committee, I can thoroughly understand your sentiment in that area, although I don't think there are too many people who would. And again, if there are other areas that you feel you can contribute to and would like to move into, I think that's critically important, and for you and for us. So I'll say that. Let me know how you feel about that. We can discuss it and move forward. So last but absolutely least, the usual review and approval of the minutes of June 23rd. Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve the minutes of the 23rd.
And a second?
Second.
And any discussion? I'm shocked. Okay, well, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And, any opposed? Okay, great. So that covers our agenda. We'll be having further conversations with Heather. As she said, a few of us, notably Brian, the new town planner, Heather and I will start working together very, very closely. We may end up having more meetings with the steering committee than we have had in the past, at least through this initial transition. So stay tuned for that. And part of communication is communication with the steering committee on a much more regular basis, which we will also do.
Robert,
And having said that,
I think it'd be appropriate to say thank you to Valerie for her
Absolutely.
contributions and wish her well in her new career.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I did want to just have a moment just to express my gratitude to this group. I know you've all been through quite a bit over the since the inception of the committee, and it's been a fabulous introduction to the town. You are a wonderful group of people. I am very excited for the incoming planner to be able to pass this off to him. And I just really appreciate your support, your enthusiasm, and the knowledge that you bring to this project. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm just a town over. So if there are any questions, or if you just want to chat about something, please reach out.
Thanks, Valerie. We know where to find you.
Yes.
and Valerie, I think your involvement was very, very critical in particularly the public communication aspect of this. You know, getting out with the forum, analyzing the outcome of the forum, getting that information out, and refocusing us a bit more in moving forward. So thank you very, very much for that.
Thank
And,
you. I'm excited for this next phase. I'll be watching.
You want a motion to adjourn, Mr.?
I do.
All right, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll
And,
second that.
Thank you, Mark. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. And thank
Good
you,
night,
Valerie.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Valerie.
Aye.